Hey, and welcome back to Our Lost Estate. We're in a new year, 2024, but before we get cracking with things in the new year, I wanted to record a video about one of my main experiences last year. With moving to France, that was the visa and immigration process. In France, they have a department called OFII, which is the Office Française d'Immigration et d'Intégration, which is about immigration and integration and managing visas when people actually get here to France. My story really started back in August of 2022 when I quit my job working as a systems administrator for a large tech company in the UK and made the decision to apply for my visa and spend as much time as I could here in 2023. The application process itself was quite complicated, and I had some assistance with that from some people who specialise in visa applications and making sure you've got all the documents set up that you need to and filling in all the various forms on the different websites to get you booked in to actually apply for your visa. If you want more information about that, I'm happy to record another video, but that gets into quite a lot of detail. So if it's of interest, leave a comment below. Having got my visa and arrived here at the beginning of 2023, one of the first things you're meant to do is register it online with a link that they give you when you receive your visa. And you just go to that website, put in a couple of little details from it and click a go button. Nice and easy. A week or so later, you will receive an email and then also a written letter through the post with a summons to go to a meeting. This meeting is with OFII in one of their offices. They've got them scattered all around France, but if you're in a particularly remote part of France, then you may have to travel quite a way to get to it. For me, it was a half-hour journey up to Limoges, which was relatively easy, so that was great. When I received this summons, one of the first things I did was look online to find out what this meeting was about, what was going to happen, what I needed to make sure that I had with me. And I didn't find much information, which is why I thought it'd be great to record this video and run through what happens, what the process is about, and my own experiences on it as well. So, the day came for my first meeting. I was a bit nervous. I'd done some research behind the scenes and managed to find out that there was going to be a language test. There was going to be some administration bits and pieces, nothing too bad. And I was going to have to sign what's called the CIR, or the Contract d'Intégration République, which is basically saying you agree to live to French standards and French law and abide by French living, really. And my experiences were, I arrived at the office, it said to arrive, I think it was 1:45, and when I got there I found the office was still closed for lunch until 2 o'clock, which is very French in many ways. So 2 o'clock came round, they opened the office and there was a whole group of us outside waiting, and we were all piled into this room and sat down, and then someone came in, introduced us, welcomed us, and said that, yep, first thing we're going to do is run through the language tests. There was going to be a written test and an oral test, and then we'd be taken through to administration work. And sure enough, it straight cracked on with the written French test as the very first thing we did. And that came out. We got given a paper and 20 minutes to answer the questions as best as we could. When I'd done that, I thought I'd done really badly. And then they took all of those in and started the oral tests. Now, the oral tests were actually done in the same room as we were sat, so we could hear everyone else's happening before us. And they actually did me second from last out of the group I was in, and it gave me a lot more confidence as I was hearing that actually my French was probably a lot better than I thought, and I was able to answer most of the questions they were asking. Came my turn and I went up to the oral and sat down, and Got asked a few basic questions like when did you come to France? When did you arrive? How did you get here? Where are you living? Is this your phone number? Just checking the details that I'd written down. And it all flowed reasonably well. My French wasn't perfect, but you don't have to have perfect French for this. What they're trying to achieve for the language tests is to say, have you got what's known as A1 standard? And yeah, they passed me with flying colours and said, actually, your French is probably to A2 standard, and that was great. Seeing some of the other people go through, they were really struggling to answer even the most basic of questions. The thing is, there is no pass or fail in this whole process. This process is about helping people integrate into French society. So for the people who had no French language ability at all, you get mandatory French training. For me, I didn't have to do that because, as I say, they rated me at A2 standard, which was great. They did give me an optional French language training that I could take up to a B1 standard, but I felt that I didn't want to do that at this stage. And I was learning enough by myself just on a day-to-day basis. I was still learning huge amounts. After the first day, you then have a medical that needs to be taken. Now, this forms two parts. One is a chest scan. I don't think it's an X-ray, but it's that sort of thing. And so you get summons to a hospital where you go and have your chest scanned. For me, that experience was really simple. The hospital was really quiet and I was in and out and done in under 10 minutes. So no problem whatsoever with that. And then a second meeting that you have at a separate time. For me, it was in the same office that I had my first day meeting, where you meet up with a doctor from OFII who goes through your chest scans and asks you some basic questions about your medical history, things like how much do you drink, do you smoke, do you have any known conditions, are you on any medication? And take your weight, your blood pressure, a couple of bits like that, very simple basic stuff, and then sign off at the end of it and you get another bit of paper to take away to say your medical's all been done and here's the results. After that, there's the final part of the OFII process, which is the Civic training. And this takes part as a 4-day training course. Where you attend site. For me, it was a separate site, so this one was down in Brive. So that's another one of the local towns where they have an office where you attend, and you can have a translator there with you to help, which they provide, and it runs through days of training about French society, about French life, about the laws, the geography, both social and natural, where France sits in Europe and the world, some of the history of France and how France came to be the way that it is. That takes part on day 1. Day 2 extends this even further. And just goes into a bit more detail around certain things. So about family life, about the separation of the church and the state. So the government in France is separate from religion, so there is no religious bias to any religion on that. And at the end of the second day, you have to come up with 3 actions, and this is done individually, that you will go away and over the next few weeks work on to help with your integration into French society. So for me, I chose to visit the Lascaux Caves, which is an international site of cave paintings and 20,000-year-old cave art here in France, some of the earliest that's been found. I also chose to try and apply for my carte vitale, That's about the medical insurance and medical cover while you're here in France. And for my third one, I said I was going to try to apply, or I was going to get in touch with the local disc golf society. It's one of the sports that I've very much enjoyed over the last few years, both watching online and participating in myself as much as I can, only on a casual hobby level. And on the third day, the structure was that we report back on the tasks that we did and what we found and how we got on with it. You didn't have to have achieved them, but you needed to have worked towards it. If you failed, that's fine as well. It's kind of part of the learning experience, part of how to integrate into France. For me, I had visited the Lascaux Caves, which were incredible and amazing. If anyone ever comes, I would highly recommend that. I'd started to work on applying for my carte vitale, but I'd found that that's not as easy as you'd hope. There were various things that you needed to do before that. So you needed your own bank account. You needed a numéro social sécurité, which is, it is a social security number, but not quite the same way as it is in America, for example. So actually I hadn't managed to get my carte vitale, but I had gone through a chunk of the process. I'd found out more about it and used a lot of the websites that they'd been telling us in the first 2 days. So that was great and really, really useful to know, because other people, if they had been trying to apply for it, that would also help them to know that it's not a simple process. There's quite a lot to it. And my third one of contacting the local disc golf society, I'd done that. I'd actually gone to the local disc golf course and played around there as well, which was great fun. And so yeah, that really, the first half of the third day was everyone reporting back on the tasks they'd done and how they'd got on and what they'd found. It was really interesting actually, and a good way of encouraging everyone to integrate more into French society. And then for the second half of the third day, they went into a bit more of the history of France, right from Clovis I, right up to Emmanuel Macron. And they covered all of that in about an hour, which was a whistle-stop tour, but covering key bits and pieces like the French Revolution in 1789 and the signing and the various different republics of France and why they all came about. So, and why we are nowadays in the Fifth Republic. And at the end of the third day, you got to choose one of two options for the fourth day of training. Now, the fourth day of training, you can either choose the work-based option, and this covers things like applying for jobs, looking at local job centres that you could go and talk to, how to write CVs and job interviews in France and what to expect in the way that they're handled in France. I didn't apply for that one. I went on the other option, which was more about the social side of French society. And so it delves deeper into all the different regions of France and their specialities, and sites and things to go and see in all the different areas, and what it is about living in France, what it means to live in France. And then at the end of the fourth day, you sign another piece of paper and you get your certificate that says you've attended all of that, and you're done. As I said earlier, this is not a pass and fail type thing. As long as you attend, that's all that really matters. I found myself, by attending, that I really enjoyed it actually. I really appreciated having to do this. It didn't feel like a chore. And I learned a lot. I gained a lot more confidence about being in France, about living in France. And I felt it really gave me a lot of value over these few days of learning just what France was all about. And I was kind of disappointed that they didn't make more people go and do this, and also reflected back in the UK that it's like I would love to do that for the UK as well, because so many people, they'll grow up there and not know half of the things that I now know about France, which in some ways was a real shame. So yeah, that was my experience of the OFII integration process. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it's not something to be scared of. And I hope that this has been some use to some of you. If you do have any questions or want to know any more about it, then do leave questions in the comments below. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next video.